Well, good afternoon and welcome to H360 Live. My name is Dave Duplay, and joining me here in the studio this afternoon is my colleague from Healthy O360, Courtland Long. Courtland, how are you?
I'm well, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing well. What do you think about this heat we're having in the city?
Oh, it is quite the scorcher. It's a hot week.
It is a hot week, and we just want to make a little bit of a public announcement. If you're suffering from asthma, the elderly, the very young, stay hydrated.
Absolutely.
Get in out of the heat. It's not only going to be hot, the humidity is going to be very high. So this happens a couple times a year here in Manhattan. So we all have to just take warning and be careful.
Definitely. And if you know any of your neighbors are possibly an isolated elderly, please go check on them, make sure that they're doing okay. Absolutely.
Well, we have a very exciting show for you today. Coming into the studio in just a little bit, we have two guests from the Transportation Security Administration, the TSA as we know it. These folks are the people who keep us safe moving throughout the airport. And we have Sina Foster coming in, and we have Michelle Cartagena. She will be in about 5 minutes' time. But first, as we always do, we have a very interesting article that we came across this week, Courtland, and it's all about how to partner with your healthcare team. The article is called Step Up and Speak Up, and it really speaks for itself. You know, whether you have a doctor's appointment or whether you have a scheduled hospital stay or an unexpected one, there's some things that you need to be aware of to make everything go smooth and integrate with your healthcare team to get the best possible healthcare that you can. So we have kind of a little comprehensive roadmap we're going to go through. Courtland, what do we have on the roadmap first?
Well, the first tip is to speak up, ask questions, and voice your concerns. In these precious few moments that you have with your doctor, I find it very helpful to come in with a list of prepared questions to go over with your doctor. Remember, it's your body and you have the right to know.
Yeah, making a list, that's really important. And I do agree with you. I go to see my doctor and, you know, I'm lucky if I get 5 minutes actually with the physician. So I see a lot of people before and I see people after, but when it comes time to really getting diagnosed and getting the treatment, it's quite short.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, the second one is pay attention. Make sure you're getting the right treatment and the right medication, and that's really important. Really understanding your medication, because sometimes there's contraindications are involved. Understanding what you're being treated for, ask a lot of questions, write down those medications, because that's really, really important that you understand them and understand clearly how to take those medications.
Definitely, and going along with that is the next tip, educate yourself. Learning about the medical tests you're going to get and the treatment plan that you're going to be on. Don't be afraid to do a little bit of research, discuss that with the doctor. You know, you can look at some very credible health organizations and foundations to find some very helpful information.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. Credible healthcare organizations. The internet can be a real scary place, as we both know. And so Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, Scripps Clinic, all great places to go get vetted, high quality information. And you're right, don't be afraid to ask your doctor about it. The next one we have coming up, and this is one I really like, is find an advocate. Take a trusted family member, take a trusted friend, you know, to that doctor visit, have them there at the hospital. A lot of times, depending on what you're being diagnosed with, you kind of hear that first part of the diagnosis, but then everything is like, wah, wah, you know, afterwards. You're really not processing. And to have an advocate sitting there beside you, listening, taking notes, helping you, when you go home, you can assimilate all this information and really make sense out of it all. So a trusted family member, a trusted friend, bring an advocate.
Yeah, and that advocate can help you see some red flags that you might not otherwise see. And so the next tip is to know what medications you're taking and why. This is really important. You should keep a list of these medications as well. And you know, you've mentioned before contraindications. So some of your medicines can actually be impacted by foods that you eat. If you're taking Coumadin, you might not be able to eat a lot of spinach because there's too much vitamin K in spinach.
Yeah, contraindication. You know, Courtland, I have a smartphone. And so in my smartphone, I have a list of all my medications. Now, don't panic. It's only one. It's only one prescription medication, right? It's for triglycerides.
Okay.
I'm not embarrassed to say that. But I do take a lot of supplements. I take a multivitamin, I take CoQ10 every morning, I take a low-dose baby aspirin, and depending on how much agita you guys give me in the office, depends on the amount of fish oil I take in any given day. But what I do is I write all that down, I have it available to show my doctor when I'm in that encounter, and we can go from there, especially when you get a lot of blood work done. The triglycerides require me every 3 months for liver toxicity to get blood work done. So the physician can look and see where things at, and I can scale up or down on the supplements as needed. This next one I really like, check before you go. This is really important. You go online and check under the Joint Commission quality standards. Make sure the facility you're going to passes the quality standards of the Joint Commission. Whether it's a hospital, a doctor's office, a surgery center, you want to make sure they're on the list of providing the highest quality care. Check them out. You can go online to Joint Commission quality standards and see if the place where you're going is on the quality list.
Yeah, before we discussed vetting organizations and things like that, you can also vet your place that you're going to go to receive care.
Yeah.
And another tip is to participate in your care. Remember that you are the center of your health care. So don't be afraid to have a conversation with your doctor. Make sure this is a two-way street. Communication should be flowing both ways.
Absolutely. It's got to be two ways, right? That's how you're going to get the best care. And maybe even, Courtland, 3 ways. Here's my favorite one. Don't be afraid to ask for a second opinion.
Yes.
Any confident healthcare professional is not going to be offended when you ask to get a second opinion. Highly recommend it. I do it most of the time, right? When I have to. I do it for my parents' care, but get that a second opinion. And again, a very confident medical professional will not be offended. Remember, as Courtland said, it's your body, it's your treatment. Get that second opinion.
Definitely. Getting a second opinion is not stepping on anyone's toes. So the 3 things to take home from all these health tips are: write down any questions, choose a family member or friend to communicate with the doctors and the staff, and keep a list of all the doctors you see and the medications that they prescribe.
Yeah, very good. Well, Courtland, as we always do every week, we sent the interns, our interns, out on the streets of New York to get feedback from our friendly New Yorkers, because we wanted to see how close they partner with their healthcare professional and what they're talking about. If you like this segment, remember you can chat to the right. We use the hashtag #RealStories. We would appreciate it if you did the same. Courtland, you want to watch the video?
Absolutely.
Twiggy, roll the video.
Do you feel you are partners with your doctor or healthcare provider?
No.
No?
I can't say I do. No.
Not most of the time.
I mean, I don't really have a primary care physician. I have really good health insurance, but I don't really go to the same doctor ever.
Right.
To tell you the truth, I don't go to the doctor.
You don't go to the doctor?
Not often, not often.
How do you educate yourself about your health?
I mean, I don't want to say the internet, but probably the internet. But
I read up on it before I go to the doctors, and then I go to online websites like WebMD and everything before I even go on.
All right.
See, my son sometimes tell me, Daddy, you gotta do this, don't eat white rice,
right.
don't eat too much of this, do this exercise, or do that.
I do it through, I guess, working with a personal trainer and different, I guess, online tools that I use, and just sort of knowledge about my pre-existing conditions.
Do you know the names of the medications you're on and kind of what they do? Like,
Yes,
yeah?
I do.
Yeah, you're like
My
aware of all
background's my background's in drug design
Oh, wow,
and delivery,
okay, yeah.
so I
So
kind of
you're
know
very
most of it.
informed,
Yeah.
I don't take any.
You don't take any?
The only
All
one I take is the 81 milligrams aspirin.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I'm fairly well informed about that.
Have you ever gotten a second opinion after you've been
Yes,
diagnosed
I've-
with an illness?
I've always gotten a second
Yeah.
opinion. It's
So you
always
go to another doctor?
I go to
or-
another doctor completely out of the hospital system just to make sure that they're not the same thing.
Thank God now.
No.
I'm
Never-
healthy
ne-
because
never needed
I'm
to.
healthy because my doctor is up ahead.
There.
I don't really think I've ever needed to.
Do you know the difference between a generic drug and a name brand drug?
Not really. I understand one is expensive than the other one.
I think it's when the patent has basically expired and it can go on the market and anyone can reproduce that combination.
The generic is after the patent runs out, and then any company can produce. Yeah.
The generic drug is the same products are inside, but it's for that store. You can put it in, but for example, Walgreens stock is going to be Walgreens drug, but you can also get Tylenol from someone else where it is, that's the name brand drug from them.
Well, Courtland, what did you think of the video?
Oh, that was such a good video. A lot of people are really involved in their care.
They are, and a lot of best practices. What about the gentleman who brings his son to the appointment as his advocate?
Absolutely, it's really important to have an advocate, and he's so healthy. You know, that's a good reason why.
Yeah, he is very healthy. He's asking the right questions. His son's there with him, right, participating in the healthcare, all of the things we talked about.
Yep.
Okay, now I have to bring it up. You know I have to bring it up, right? What am I going to bring up?
The green hair.
What is up with that lady's green hair? Now, I was watching closely. I believe this is the same lady that maybe 2 months ago we saw that had the purple hair.
No, it's a different person.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Well, the lady with the purple hair was wearing that crown on her head. Now that was really interesting.
Yes, it was. She's a New York City character.
She is a character. Well, our interns did a great job. Our friendly New Yorkers, over the top, great video, great job, guys. Well, now is our favorite time of the show. We've got our guests making their way into the studio again. Our guests come from the Transportation Security Administration, which can be found at tsa.gov. We have them coming in, getting situated, but before we bring them on the set, I always enjoy looking at organizations' mission statements, their vision, and the mission of the TSA, get this, is to protect the nation's transportation system and to ensure freedom of movement for people and commerce. I knew it was for people. The commerce part is new to me. I'm going to ask about that. The vision is to provide the most effective transportation security in the most efficient way as a high-performing counterterrorism organization, and they are doing a fantastic job there. But here's what I like the most. Anybody that publishes their values are tops in my book. Their values are integrity, innovation, and team spirit. Well, ladies, thanks for joining us today. It is hot out there, you have to admit, right?
Indeed.
So stay hydrated. We reviewed that up front, right? We got to stay hydrated. Well, we have so many questions to ask, and we want to get started, but I'm interested to hear your background and how you got to the TSA. And Michelle, maybe you can kick us off.
Sure. I'm actually a native of New York and relocated to Virginia after joining TSA, but I was actually here for 9/11. And really was very passionate about the mission of TSA. And so I was in the training area and found a position at TSA and transitioned to Virginia. And I've been there for 12 years now, helping to support the mission in the work that we're doing there.
Fantastic. Yeah, you were here for 9/11.
Yep.
I was as well, lost a lot of friends. So you guys are doing a fantastic job. Sina, what about you?
I spent 24 years in public and private sector service before coming to TSA. So I've been with TSA since May of 2014. And I bring with me a real passion for civil rights work and the delivery of government programs. So it's an exciting place to be, and we very much appreciate being on your show today.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And Sina, can you tell us what you aim to do as the TSA's manager of the disability branch?
So the disability branch has quite a daunting set of tasks ahead of it, but we engage in three main areas. We conduct passenger engagement, we engage with the community, we also do workforce engagement. So in those areas, we offer a lot of resources, tools, guides, training, a lot of engagement out in the communities and speaking to try and really help the traveling public be better informed and to help our workforce better serve the members of the public that come through those security checkpoints.
Wow. Well, in the spirit of keeping them informed, you have a program called TSA Cares. What are the main goals of that program? Can you guys explain a little bit of that for me?
Sure. TSA Cares is a dedicated helpline for passengers with disabilities or medical conditions, and the goal is to help facilitate a smooth transition through the passenger screening process. So if they need any type of assistance, or if they're just looking for information on what to expect at the checkpoint, they can call TSA Cares and someone's there to assist them with that information or to set up assistance at the airport.
I see. Now, how long has this program been running, and why did it get started?
So TSA Cares started in 2011, December of 2011, so just before Christmas, which is of course a very heavy travel time. And the goal was really to provide universal access for passengers, specifically those with disabilities or medical conditions, to help facilitate a smooth process through the checkpoint. We didn't want folks to have a lot of anxiety, even folks that haven't traveled in a long time, who now have some type of disability, to be afraid to travel. So providing them that information up front to know what to expect, and then also offering that assistance if needed, can help them not have too much trouble or problems, or even just anxiety in traveling and getting to their destination.
Yeah, now if I'm not mistaken, that hotline again is 855-787-2227,
That's
right?
correct, yeah.
And we can always find you guys at tsa.gov, which is
Absolutely.
loaded with great resources.
About how many airports nationwide participate in TSA Cares, and is this only a program available in the U.S.?
It is a program available in the U.S. For the airports that TSA is responsible for, and all of the airports actually participate. So individuals can call the phone number that Dave just mentioned, and we will take the information and make sure that information is transmitted to the airports to help facilitate their travel through the checkpoint.
So what should a traveler with a disability or a chronic condition be aware of before they get to the airport? Are they going to have a different check-in process or screening process?
Well, TSA Cares is really focused on facilitation through this passenger screening checkpoint. So an individual will still have to check in with their airline in the normal fashion that they do now. And if there is something in particular that they may require assistance to their airline would be the best, person to handle that. That may include like wheelchair assistance or the ticket printing process or things like that. That is handled specifically through the airline. But that the checkpoint process, providing your ID and your actual screening, that's what TSA Cares can assist with. And again, providing information. If you have a specific medical condition, calling TSA Cares and they can walk you through, here's what your screening process is going to be, and the traveler can ask any questions that they might have about that as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. And, eliminating the anxiety of travel, especially, families traveling with young children, people with disabilities. And I know you have this TSA notification card. How does that differ from TSA Cares, and what's the purpose of the notification card?
So the notification card, you can download it on the website, tsa.gov. It is Section 508 compliant, meaning folks who are blind or have low vision will be able to also read that card and fill it out. It's a way for the passenger with a disability or medical condition to approach the checkpoint and inform each of the officers as they go through that security screening process of that disability or medical condition discreetly. So they don't have to announce that they have an insulin pump or an ostomy pouch or an artificial joint if they don't choose to do so. They can write that out. They can also write out any accommodations they may like to ask for. And this is particularly useful if they're carrying medically necessary items with them, medically necessary liquids, medications, accessories. You'll want to make sure that those security screening officers are aware of those things prior to that screening process, and the notification card can help you do that.
And so for the notification card, are there any health requirements that someone needs to have prior to filling out that card? When in the security checkpoint do they hand that card over to the officers?
So the card should be used throughout the security screening process. So just like your video that you showed your audience here today, speaking up is a best practice at the checkpoint. So even when the document checker takes a look at your ID and your boarding pass, you'll let them know at that time, but you also let the next officer in line know. So keep that communication, that interactive dialogue going, and be proactive in that. Make sure that you're making them aware each step of the process, because you may see different officers throughout that screening process, and you want to make sure each one of them knows.
Yeah, I think you're so right. Communication through the process is key. But now we have this TSA pre-check. So we've got the notification card, we have TSA Cares, now we have TSA pre-check. Where does that come into play? What program is that? How can our viewers be informed of pre-check?
So TSA PreCheck is really a tremendous program. It's part of TSA's risk-based security program. And what it does for folks who sign up to be in TSA PreCheck, it allows TSA to vet those folks and therefore focus on security screening of the folks that they don't know so much about. So once you go to one of the TSA PreCheck enrollment centers, and they're located throughout the country, you can check tsa.gov for a location near you. Once you do that, you file your application, you submit fingerprints or an alternative form of ID, and then you are vetted and approved for pre-check. You'll get what is known as a known traveler number, a KTN, and you'll want to make sure you put that number when you book your flights. Make sure you include that number in the booking of the flight so that you can get that on your boarding pass. Got it.
KTN. I love acronyms.
Yeah.
KTN. I won't forget that. So what about global entry? So that is one part of it, but globally, you know, if we have a lot of international travelers, what is global entry?
So global entry is operated through Customs and Border Patrol, and it's a similar program where you're vetted. The fee for global entry is $100 and it lasts for 5 years. With global entry, if you're a person who anticipates traveling internationally, then it may be a better program for you because it also includes TSA PreCheck. PreCheck is for domestic flights. And so PreCheck will cost $85, also good for 5 years. And if you really are just traveling domestically, then that would be the program for you. And it's available to everybody, not just passengers with disabilities or medical conditions.
So this is going to get you through the process a little faster. It does not, however, and this is important, I think, it does not, however, exclude you from going through either the metal detector or what you brought to my attention when we were getting to know each other earlier before the show, the AIT machine.
Right. That's correct. So the notification card that we were talking about earlier and TSA PreCheck, both of them are great resources, but they don't exempt folks from screening. The difference will be that the TSA PreCheck, you have more expedited screening. The lines tend to be shorter. They tend to move faster. You don't have to remove the bag of liquids that are the 311 compliant liquids. Medically necessary items, you're still going to want to divest those from your bag so that they can be screened separately.
Yeah, you know, I got to admit, I'm not very good at math. And so I've donated a lot of product to your organization. I can't really get the 3.4 ounce thing in my head.
Yes.
Sorry, I can't.
Right.
But so what happens if we have a large community of people living with diabetes, and these folks are traveling, they're enjoying life, but they're traveling with liquid medications, they're traveling with needles to give themselves injections. Maybe some of them are wearing a pump. What can you guys recommend for those folks, and not just for people living with diabetes, but any special need? You know, what do you recommend to make the process run smooth? Should we hold those medical items out in a separate bag for viewing, or what do you recommend?
So I think a couple of things. I think the first thing would be to make sure that you educate yourself. That's one of those best practices that you mentioned earlier. And you would do that through TSA Cares. They can tell you what to expect at the checkpoint. If you're carrying medically necessary items, that other best practice that we talked about earlier is communication. Continuing to communicate with each of those officers as you go through the process is going to be critical here. So if you have medically necessary items, whether you're in pre-check or in the standard screening lanes, you're going to want to make sure that you've got those separate in a separate bag, and you bring those out so that the TSA officer knows what they are and can screen them appropriately. So they do have to still be screened, but we can screen medically necessary items in excess of that limitation where you had to voluntarily donate so many items to TSA. Yeah.
So you kind of already went through the application process of TSA PreCheck. You know, you can go on tsa.gov pay the $85, you submit your fingerprints and different forms of ID. Is there anything else involved in that process?
They would do a background check. So there'll be a background check conducted. You'll be providing information for them to do that. And once that has cleared, then you will get that known traveler number by email or through the mail.
And so, you know, this happens all the time. People get to the airport, they realize that they forgot some very important document or their ID, boarding pass, itinerary, you know, what have you. So what happens if someone with a disability or a chronic condition gets to the airport and they hadn't realized up until that moment that they might need some safe traveling assistance? What can they do at that point?
You want to talk about the passenger support specialist program that's available?
So the passenger can call TSA Cares, and in addition to getting information about traveling in advance to help them be better informed, the other thing they can do is ask for a passenger support specialist. And this program was launched in 2013 by TSA, and it really is a tremendous program. And the passenger support specialist cadre consists of TSA officers who have voluntarily taken on a collateral duty to specifically assist passengers with disabilities and medical conditions through the checkpoints. So once you call into TSA Cares and provide your flight information, if you can do that 72 hours in advance, that's recommended so folks can get enough time to coordinate the logistics at the airport, then you would have a passenger support specialist meet you at the entry point to the security screening area and assist you through that process. And that passenger support specialist will be with you throughout the screening process, and that can really help a lot of folks who may have some anxieties going through the process.
Yeah, you know, I've traveled over 3 million air miles, so I'm a frequent traveler. And I've seen these specialists in action, and if you travel as much as I do, you've seen it all, right? And it takes a very special person to step up and do this, and as you mentioned, they're not compensated anymore. I'm curious about service animals and getting service animals through the process, through the screening, through the check, getting them safely through that and safely on board and on their way to their destination. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. We do have processes in place to screen passengers with service animals. It does not require that the passenger remove the harness from the service animal. The passenger stays in control of that service animal throughout the process. And there are options for the animal to go first through the walk-through metal detector, followed by the passenger, or the passenger can elect to go first, followed by the service animal, or they can go through together. If one or the other alarms in that walk-through metal detector, then they will get a pat-down. But it really is up to that passenger as to how they would like to have that screening proceed.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That is really great. I know a lot of people, you know, have their service animals and definitely need them with them at all times.
Yeah.
And it seems like you guys really care about your passengers. You want them to have a good traveling experience and be very well informed. So is there any other kind of information that's helpful for someone with a disability or a chronic condition to have before flying?
One of the items I would recommend, as Sina's already mentioned, is to call TSA Cares. And when you do call, make sure that you provide the agent with your itinerary. Let them know what airport you're flying from, what time your flight is, and that really helps us prepare in advance for assistance. You had mentioned in the previous question about, you know, what happens if I forget to call, and you can still ask for a passenger support specialist when you get to the checkpoint, but calling in advance really gives us the opportunity to prepare for that assistance. So providing your itinerary, you may not necessarily have to provide what your disability or medical condition is, but give us information as far as what assistance is needed. So, you know, you might say that, you know, you have a medical condition, but that doesn't exactly provide us with the information on what do you need help with. So giving that information in advance, 72 hours is ideal. And we work with the coordination centers at every airport across the country that will help coordinate that travel for you. Keep in mind that this is through the passenger screening checkpoint, and the response is a little different depending on the resources that are available at the airport. In some cases, you may receive a phone call that may ask additional questions and give additional instructions. In other cases, they know you're coming. They've received your information, they're aware that you're coming, and they'll make sure that they facilitate that smooth flow through the checkpoint.
Yeah. You know, your organization has a wonderful mission, a wonderful vision, and I'm assuming that you gather a lot of feedback. You're interested in hearing what the travel experience is, and then using that knowledge, whether it be a positive piece of information or somebody who may have gotten through the process and their expectations weren't met. How do you gather information, that kind of feedback, and then what do you do with it once you have it to put it back through the process?
So TSA's contact center is really the main portal of information for TSA. Information coming in, information going out. So if you have that question or that compliment or a request for assistance, that really is done through the contact center and through TSA Cares, as we previously mentioned. But there are times where people do have a complaint about the process, and my office, which is the customer service branch, works with disability. We will transmit that complaint information over to the disability branch, and then Sina's office will handle it. And I'll let Sina talk a little bit about what happens on the back end once we do the intake.
Sure.
Right. So once it is referred to our office, if someone is alleging that they were discriminated against because of their disability or medical condition in that security screening process, we will actually conduct an investigation of that complaint. We'll pull the video of the security screening. We'll take statements from the officers. We'll talk to the passenger. And at the end of the day, what we really want to do is lessons learned, make sure that if there was something that went wrong at that checkpoint, that we figure out what that was so that we can provide training either to specific officers, to a particular airport, and sometimes we'll even do best practices pieces nationwide. So our branch engages in all of those levels of activity. We'll conduct in-person training. We conduct webinar-based training every month. We conduct specialized training for the passenger support specialists just so they can be certified as such. We also conduct targeted webinar training where we host a community-based organization coming in to actually speak directly with the frontline workforce, and that's a tremendous exchange of information and insights and tips. So we had the American Diabetes Association come in November as part of the American Diabetes Awareness Month. You know, we have an ongoing awareness series, and we gear a lot of our engagements, both the internal and external engagements, to the public around that awareness series.
Yeah. Now, I understand that you had an anniversary recently, 25 years of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I'm curious, did you do anything special to commemorate that anniversary in your office?
Absolutely. We have things going every week, and it's really it's a tremendous time, a lot of accomplishments and a lot more work to be done. So we participate in a lot of the federal agencies that are sponsoring anniversary events. We are participating in those. We also participated in the 46th Annual Autism Conference in Denver, Colorado. We also put out a what to expect piece for members of our public that covers a broad range of things to expect with disabilities and medical conditions, and so that went out this month. And then we also had, as part of our targeted webinar, we invited a person from one of the community-based organizations, Independence Center of Virginia, to come and speak to our frontline workforce about just a wide variety of different disabilities and medical conditions and things that the TSA officers should be aware of as they try to screen passengers, and we want that to be a successful process on both sides.
Yeah, wow. You guys are certainly very, very busy. We have many, many more questions for you, but unfortunately we are out of time for today. So Michelle, Sina, thank you for braving the heat and coming in. I'd like to thank the viewers at home for tuning in, and I'd like to thank our sponsors for making this all possible. Remember, all of our episodes can be viewed on demand at healthyo360.com, and our podcast can now be found in the iTunes Store. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. We use the hashtag Real Stories, and we would appreciate it if you would do the same. So on behalf of myself, Courtland Long, and the entire Healthyo360 family, we hope you have a very pleasant afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.